Amazing truth exposed. How a rich woman's shocking act transformed a black maid's life forever. In a quiet suburb of Atlanta, Sarah Johnson stood at the threshold of another sprawling mansion, dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. As a single mother working tirelessly as a maid, every time she entered these opulent homes, the weight of her life pressed down harder on her shoulders. Her gaze traveled over the gleaming chandeliers and polished marble floors, and she couldn't help but feel the sharp contrast to her own cramped apartment, filled with the laughter of her two children playing in chaos. "How did I get here?" she whispered under her breath, the ache of longing gnawing at her. Every day, she kneaded her worries into the fabric of her reality. Scrubbing the floors of the wealthy made her skin crawl with envy, yet beneath the jealousy simmered a sense of resolve. She needed to provide, to change her life and her children's lives, a desire that burned fiercely. But why dream too big? What if she never became a social worker? The very thought fed the doubts swirling in her mind, doubts that taunted her relentlessly. Was the aspiration to help others just another illusion? The afternoon sun poured into the grand hallway as she scrubbed diligently, thoughts racing between exhaustion and ambition. This moment felt trivial compared to the dreams she harbored, yet every wipe of the cloth felt like both a surrender and a fight. Would she always be caught in this cycle? Saving just enough to pay bills, with hopes only forced down the throat of reality, didn't seem like a life at all. Fear crept in. What if her children inherited her struggles? What if they never escaped these shackles? Then came a voice from the other room. Evelyn Taylor, the wealthy owner, stood nearby, an enigmatic figure who always felt untouched by the grime of everyday life. But today was different. Sarah overheard her comforting her own children over the phone with a weight of sorrow in her tone. The veil of privilege dropped momentarily, exposing vulnerability. Sarah hesitated. Could Evelyn ever understand the sacrifices she made as single mom, clinging to dreams through the fog of poverty? Would her empathy match the despair that filled Sarah's life? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. An invisible thread began to weave between them, even as Sarah's heart raced with fear. What if Evelyn saw through her facade? What if she realized how little her world meant? In that moment, the walls of her carefully built self-reliance cracked. What if this was an opportunity? An answer to her cries for help, a path to a better future for her children? And yet, the haunting echo of insecurity drummed against her resolve. As the days passed and they interacted more, the gulf between their worlds only widened, yet pulled Sarah with invisible strings. Thoughts spiraled. A part of her yearned for comfort, while another clung tightly to the fear of being seen, of being vulnerable. Then tragedy struck, sending Evelyn's life spiraling into chaos. Suddenly, Sarah felt the commune of their shared desolation. Would she step forward or retreat back into the shadows of her own despair? The choice loomed heavy before her. As they grappled with their intertwining fates, Sarah stood on the precipice of a decision that could alter the course of her life and her family's future. Would she embrace this chance to rise, or let fear dictate her destiny? Each breath felt like a battle, a storm brewing inside her, as the very air crackled with uncertainty. How could both a rich woman and a black maid find a way to redefine success? Could mutual understanding transform their lives forever, or would the differences drown them in despair? Sarah inhaled deeply, feeling a tumult within her, ready for whatever lay ahead. The weeks unfurled like a slowly unraveling thread, each day marking the meticulous balance between Sarah's growing bond with Evelyn and her ever-present sense of inadequacy. Every interaction became laced with potential and risked a dance of hope against the backdrop of fear. As she scrubbed the floors, Sarah's mind teemed with flashes of possibility. Conversations with Evelyn began to fill the empty spaces in her life, their discussions ranging from mundane household topics to deeper reflections on dreams and aspirations. Evelyn had a way of drawing Sarah out, urging her to speak of her intentions to become a social worker. "It's important work," Evelyn had said, her voice steady and sincere. "You'd help so many people." But the praise felt like a double-edged sword, cutting through Sarah's defenses while simultaneously beckoning her closer to the precipice of hope. Each compliment ignited a spark, but also bred self-doubt. What if she failed? What if her dreams became another painful story of unfulfilled aspirations? On an unusually cool afternoon, as shadows stretched across the marble floors, Evelyn revealed her own vulnerability. "I don't know how to pick up the pieces," she confided, brushing a hand through her disheveled hair. "Sometimes, life feels like it's spinning out of control." In that moment, Sarah realized they were not so different. Beneath the facade of wealth lay a shared complexity of human struggle. Evelyn needed support, just as desperately as Sarah needed a lifeline. Suddenly, Sarah's thoughts spiraled back to her children. They were her heartbeat, the anchors grounding her in the storm of uncertainty. How would they view their mother if they saw her retreating into herself, the woman who always told them that hope was a choice? Would they come to know her dreams as mere whispers, beaten down by the reality of their existence? The thought seared through her, igniting fierce determination. Perhaps it was time to lean into the discomfort, to allow courage to override fear. The following day, Sarah initiated an unexpected conversation with Evelyn during a quiet moment in the kitchen. "Can I share something personal?" The words emerged with a hesitant tremor, yet they offered a glimpse into the burgeoning confidence within her. With each syllable, she revealed her story, the challenges of raising children alone, the weight of financial struggles, and ultimately, her ambition. Evelyn listened, her expression shifting from surprise to understanding, nodding thoughtfully. For the first time, Sarah felt seen not as the maid, but as an individual with dreams and aspirations. It was liberating, yet terrifying, a leap into unfamiliar territory. They began to develop a plan. Maybe Evelyn's connections could assist in Sarah's educational endeavor, a network of support that felt real and accessible. Slowly, with each conversation, Sarah's self-doubt was met with newfound resolve. She felt a flicker of possibility. Yet, shadows remained. How would she balance the emotional weight of their growing relationship with her ingrained fears of inadequacy? What would happen if she faltered in the light of opportunity? The lines they had begun to draw between their experiences blurred, revealing a greater truth. They were each other's mirror, reflecting struggles and victories alike. As the days progressed, Sarah contemplated the depth of their connection and the strategic choices that lay ahead. Private moments spent unraveling Evelyn's burdens began to reshape her own sense of purpose. They could be transformative, but deep within, an unsettling question lingered. What if this partnership demanded more than she was willing or able to give? Amidst the new roles emerging between them, anxiety crept in. Was she ready to step into a space that felt so profoundly different from her own? The moment arrived when Sarah knew she would need to make a choice about where her loyalty lay, with her dreams or a strategic alliance that could reshape her future. That choice, a crossroads, loomed ever closer, a whisper of clarity amidst the chaos. And as she felt the weight of the decision settling heavily upon her, she understood that while the road was uncertain, the outcome could redefine everything she had known. Would she dare to grasp the opportunity before her, or falter at the brink? Sarah awoke that morning with the weight of the world pressing against her chest. The sunlight trickled in, a reminder of the warmth she craved as she faced the choice ahead. Today was not just another day. It felt like a defining moment, one that could alter the course of her life and the lives of her children. She moved through her morning routine mechanically, her mind racing with possibilities. The air in the kitchen thickened with unspoken tension as Sarah glanced at Evelyn, who was seated at the large oak table, studying a stack of papers. There was an intensity behind Evelyn's eyes today, a flicker of anticipation that mirrored Sarah's inner turbulence. Would today's conversation be the catalyst for a leap toward a brighter future or a retreat into safety? Determined, Sarah steadied her voice and took a seat across from Evelyn. "I've been thinking about our discussions, about my future and possibly pursuing my education." Each word felt like a stone cast into the stillness of the room, rippling out towards the uncharted waters ahead. Evelyn looked up, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm so glad to hear that. What has been holding you back?" Taking a deep breath, Sarah realized her apprehensions extended beyond simple doubt. It was fear rooted in years of societal limitations. "I wonder if I'm truly capable of achieving something like that. The world, it can feel really daunting, you know?" The truth oozed from her as she revealed the struggles of navigating life's harsh realities, yet there was also a flicker of hope in her tone. Evelyn leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "Sarah, every great dream is forged in fear and uncertainty. It's time to confront it, not let it control you." Her words sounded like a challenge, igniting a defiance deep within. Clarity began to seep through the fog of Sarah's doubts. What if having a mentor like Evelyn opened doors she never thought possible? The thought was exhilarating. In that moment, she made a decision not just to dream, but to take actionable steps toward her aspirations. "I want to explore my options further. I need to know what it would take to enroll in a program." Evelyn's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Let us research schools together. I could introduce you to some people who might help navigate the application process." The prospect of collaboration kindled hope within Sarah. Yet, a chasm of uncertainty loomed before her. Could she continue balancing the dual roles of mother and aspiring student without losing herself in the process? Were her sacrifices valid enough to pursue her ambitions? With newfound strength, Sarah agreed to meet with a local college advisor that week. Each step taken felt like solid ground beneath her feet, propelling her deeper into a future that began to shimmer with possibility. She could almost see her children's faces, filled with pride rather than disappointment. But as excitement filled her heart, shadows of doubt also resurfaced. The more Sarah opened herself to opportunity, the more she risked stepping into an arena of societal judgment and the heavy burden of expectation, a conflict within her that had been silent for too long. As days passed, Evelyn's encouragement and the prospect of education pushed Sarah to confront her fears, but self-doubt remained a persistent whisper. Was she truly capable of facing the societal constraints that seemed insurmountable at every turn? In a moment of quiet reflection, Sarah grappled with this reality. Would she seize the chance, risking another failure, or would she allow her fears to create another layer of confinement, stifling her growth once again? The truth churned violently within her, and it demanded confrontation. The threshold of her potential was close, but the cost of crossing it could be steep. Would she brace herself for the battle against that ever-looming doubt and emerge transformed, or would she draw back and retreat, secure yet unfulfilled? As the night drew in, Sarah found herself at the precipice of another question. What would truly define her journey, a clear path forward, or the haunting echoes of what if? The moment of decision felt imminent, and with it, the adrenaline of change surged through her. What awaited her on the other side was still unknown, but she could no longer deny that the time had come to face the truth of her own power. The morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, illuminating Sarah's workspace with a clarity she hadn't experienced before. With a fresh notebook in front of her, the first blank page seemed to beckon her, inviting the stories of her ambitions to unfold. The recent conversations with Evelyn replayed in her mind. Each word of encouragement became a bridge across the tumultuous waters of uncertainty that threatened to drown her before she even began. Reflecting on that pivotal moment, Sarah realized that her journey would demand not only courage, but a meticulous plan of execution. Her initial excitement mingled with anxiety, and she took a moment to breathe. It was now a matter of transforming abstract dreams into tangible steps. She decided to make a list: potential schools, areas of study, application deadlines, and the requirements she needed to meet. It was an act steeped in hope and realization, a strategy for directing her tumult into purpose. Yet, each tick of the clock heightened Sarah's awareness of the responsibilities still resting heavily on her shoulders: home, family, the constant need for balancing act. Was there time in this new narrative for her aspirations, or would they forever remain stifled beneath the weight of obligations? She pictured her children, the lifeblood of her existence, and the thought ignited something within her. If she succeeded, wouldn't they learn the value of perseverance? Wouldn't they gain a role model, someone who dared to break free from limitations? As she pinned down her thoughts, a sense of clarity washed over her. The mere act of writing became liberating. It transformed her apprehension into a tangible roadmap. But the looming question remained: could she integrate this evolution into her daily life without sacrificing the very essence of what it meant to care for her family? The moment she placed her pen down, a sharp rapping on the door startled her. It was Evelyn, her presence palpable with excitement. "I couldn't help but think of our conversation last week," Evelyn said as she entered, her enthusiasm radiating the room. "Have you made any concrete plans yet?" Sarah hesitated for a moment. "I'm putting together a list of schools and requirements. I want to have a clear plan before I take the next step." The vulnerability in her admission hinted at the deep-seated fears she was confronting. Evelyn smiled, nodding in approval. "That's fantastic, Sarah. Do you know what field you want to study yet? Finding your passion is integral to the process." At that moment, Sarah felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her again. "I love writing, but I have never considered it as an academic pursuit. What if I'm not good enough?" The words tumbled out before she could catch them, tinged with the familiar taste of self-doubt. The fear of failure crept silently back into her thoughts, entwining around her resolve. "Listen," Evelyn replied gently, "you won't know your potential until you push through these doubts. It's okay to feel uncertain. It means you're on the precipice of something new, something that could redefine who you are." Evelyn's faith sparked a flicker of determination within Sarah, urging her to navigate through these shadows of uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, Sarah squared her shoulders and bumped her resolve back to the forefront. "You're right. I will explore writing programs. There's no reason I shouldn't pursue something I genuinely enjoy." The taste of conviction replaced the lingering fear, stitching together the fabric of her future ambitions. As they began discussing potential writing schools, a sense of purpose infused Sarah's spirit. Each possibility she explored appeared as a door waiting to be unlocked, each choice drawing her closer to the future she envisioned. However, as the afternoon wore on, a nagging thought remained in the back of her mind. What if her ambitions would lead to dissatisfaction for her children? Was there a chance she would become so consumed with her pursuits that she might neglect the very miracle she was striving to pave the way for? These questions began to haunt her, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah was left with an unsettling realization. The pursuit of her aspirations might illuminate paths she never anticipated, but could also create unexpected shadows over her relationship with her children. Would the balance she desperately sought remain achievable, or would her dreams fracture her family dynamic on an unforeseen scale? The tension of this dilemma gripped her tightly as she lingered in the twilight of uncertainty, aware that what lay ahead would challenge her on every front. In the dimming light, Sarah's resolve began to crystallize, but with it came a chilling acknowledgement of the stakes at play. She needed to confront the loaded implications of her ambition before any decision crystallized into reality. What awaited her at the crossroads of ambition and obligation could redefine the very fabric of her existence. Would she be able to find the harmony required to achieve her destiny without sacrificing the love that anchored her? As the last remnants of sunlight faded, Sarah closed the curtain in her workspace, shielding herself from the encroaching night. The stillness enveloped her, leaving only the rhythmic ticking of the clock to echo in the silence. She felt the weight of her unaddressed dreams pressing against her chest, constricting her thoughts. This transition, she realized, was not just about education. It was an overhaul of her entire identity, crafted from the dual threads of aspiration and the unwavering love for her family. Sarah reached for her notebook again, flipping through the pages where she had begun to formulate her plans. Each scribbled note represented not just a potential school or course, but also a step toward freedom, a means to reclaim the spark of creativity that had long been dormant within her. The simple act felt powerful, but it screamed of urgency. The need for action demanded clarity, and clarity was the enemy of complacency. But as she contemplated her next moves, she couldn't help but question the ethics of her ambitions. Focusing on her dreams meant redefining roles that had long remained untouched. Could she risk her children's comfort and security for the flicker of light that her dreams represented? The thought churned vigorously in her mind, igniting worries of neglect, disconnection, and perhaps even guilt. Yet, Evelyn's words echoed back with fervor. You won't know your potential until you push through these doubts. Could it be that she wasn't just pursuing a career, but positioning herself as a role model, an embodiment of tenacity for her children? Framing her desires in this context ignited a flicker of hope within her. But how could she ensure that her children's emotional needs were met while forging her own path? Determined to dissect this conundrum, Sarah resolved to open honest dialogue with her family. They deserved transparency, a seat at the table where dreams were woven into the fabric of everyday life. But sharing her ambitions felt vulnerable, and a flicker of fear passed through her at the thought of their reactions. What if they don't understand? She mused as she wrapped her arms around herself. What if they feel abandoned? Setting down her pen, she decided to action her thoughts. After preparing dinner, she carefully chose her words, laying the groundwork for a conversation that could bond or fracture their family dynamic. She gathered her children around the dinner table, the intimate atmosphere suffused with the aroma of their favorite meal. Can we talk about some things I've been thinking about? She began, her heart racing. To her surprise, her children listened intently, their faces tilted toward her, curiosity piercing through the initial tension. She explained her aspirations to explore writing, the excitement it stirred within her, and the importance of following dreams. As she spoke, anxiety coiled around her heart, bracing itself for potential backlash, for the uncomfortable silence that might follow. But her eldest child took the initiative to break it, his brow furrowing thoughtfully. Mom, we want you to be happy too. You tell us that all the time. In that moment, clarity pierced through Sarah's fears. The dialogue flourished, evolving from her anxieties to a robust discussion about dreams, each word drawn from the raw knowledge that personal fulfillment could coexist alongside love. As the conversation unfurled, revelations dawned upon Sarah that this journey would not be solo. They were all on the same path of discovery, albeit on different trails. They could grow together, bridging the gap between her ambitions and their lives. Driving home the necessity of balance, however, her mind veered back to her own sacrifices. The pressing urgency of maintaining the allure of a nurturing home, while peeling back layers of her aspirations, began to create a unique storm, one that she could neither ignore nor dismiss. With the conversation grounded, she felt the tangible support of her family's love, a quiet assurance that her dreams might not uproot their familial bonds, but could instead enhance them. However, as they wrapped up dinner and the evening wound down, The complexity of how nagged at her. What actions would she take next to carve a meaningful path without compromising the family foundation she cherished? A sudden chill washed over her, the looming uncertainty reminding her that while plans were forming, the challenges were just beginning. She realized that she had taken the initial step, but the road ahead would demand even more formidable resolve. Unbeknownst to her, the real test of her ambitions and the true measure of her family's cohesion would be unveiled in the choices she would soon have to face. As she tucked her children into bed, a dynamic whirlwind of excitement and apprehension brewed within her. The horizon stretched ahead, enticing yet fraught with peril. Yet now, with her newfound determination, Sarah sensed she was standing at the edge of a vast unknown, ripe with potential but loaded with consequences. What awaited her next would reveal whether her dreams could coexist with her cherished role as a mother. The morning light broke through the kitchen window, spilling warmth across the table where Sarah sat, coffee in hand, her notebook open before her. Today marked the start of her new journey, yet the lingering sense of uncertainty clung to her like a second skin. Thoughts of her children lingered in her mind. Their words from last night echoed a balm for her apprehension, igniting a growing resolve within her. As she sat in the silent house, she felt the vibrations of change thrumming in her veins. This was not merely a pursuit of a newfound passion, it was a recalibration of her identity. She had spoken of her dreams, but action was necessary to bind those words to reality. Sarah began drafting a plan, not just a list of writing classes, but an outline that mapped her aspirations against her daily responsibilities. But commitment demanded intention. How would she manage deadlines interwoven with parenting duties? Could she carve out space for her creative pursuits without jeopardizing the fluid rhythm of family life that had been painstakingly established? With each calculated thought, the weight of responsibility pressed down on her. She needed to devise a strategy that allowed her to flourish while safeguarding her family's foundation. She wrote, focusing on tangible actions, perhaps an early morning routine, writing at the kitchen table before the kids awoke, or scheduling dedicated time after school hours. These weren't just logistics. They represented her commitment, an affirmation to herself that her aspirations mattered, yet self-doubt tugged insistently at the edges of her mind. What if her plans didn't align with the needs of her family? Far from retreating into complacency, she would take the initiative to include her children in her creative world. They could share moments of exploration and creativity, art projects, storytelling sessions. The prospect of nurturing their own dreams alongside hers lifted her spirits. As the day progressed, Sarah leaned into gathering feedback. Despite the comfort she found in her family's support, she craved an external source of validation for her ambitions. With a surge of purpose, Sarah searched for local writing groups, online workshops, and community colleges that offered evening classes. She yearned for a network, a community of individuals who lived and breathed writing, a tribe to share her aspirations. For the first time, Sarah understood the power of sharing her vulnerabilities. Walking into a room of strangers armed only with her words would undoubtedly be daunting, but it was essential. The mere thought of being among like-minded individuals sparked exhilaration and fear in equal measure. What if they judged her? Yet, what if they embraced her? Deliberation transformed into a decision. The next day, she would attend a local writers' meetup. But beyond just the intent to join, she would introduce herself, taking the first step toward vulnerability in an environment that held promise. As she prepared dinner that night, immersed in the aromas of roasting vegetables, she contemplated her safe, familiar life against the risk of creativity. The juxtaposition of comfort and ambition created a friction within her thoughts. After meal preparation, she engaged her children with stories of her day, allowing them to see her energy shift as she opened up about their potential adventure into the writing community. "Can we come too?" her youngest voiced, eyes wide with excitement. In that moment, Sarah recognized that she had embedded their journey within her own. They were intricately linked, paving paths that overlapped. As bedtime approached, the weight of her aspirations intertwined with her role as a parent. Each decision felt emblematic of the delicate balance she aimed to achieve. Yet, with every passing minute, an underlying fear flickered. With the day winding down, a flicker of apprehension loomed. What if this path diverted her from being the mother she aspired to be? The fear of perceived failure gnawed at her gut. Standing at the threshold of her children's room, she hesitated, half wondering whether she was poised to step into the world of possibility or teetered towards self-doubt. This sharp choice sharpened the clarity of her resolve. While she could tread carefully, she would do so with intention. In those moments of quiet reflection, one thing became blatantly evident. This was just the beginning. The true evolution hinged on the commitment she would show, not only to her craft but also to her family. The looming questions pressed hard. What would it mean to find her voice? Could she nurture both in the process of creation? As she turned off the last light, Sarah's heart beat with a new rhythm, filled with the understanding that the road ahead promised trials, but equally immense growth. What challenges awaited her in the writing world? Would she find acceptance, or face harsh critique? The answer seemed tantalizingly out of reach, pressing her onward into the unknown. The next morning arrived with a heightened sense of anticipation. Sarah awoke early, her mind buzzing with the myriad possibilities her decision had unleashed. The sun streamed through her window, illuminating her determined face in the mirror. This day was not just another Thursday. It was a pivotal point that had the potential to shift the course of her life. As she prepared breakfast, her thoughts danced between excitement and anxiety. She was scheduled to attend her first writers' meetup that evening, a gathering that felt both inviting and intimidating. Her children were bustling about, filled with youthful energy, unaware of the internal storm brewing within their mother. The kitchen transformed into a chaotic blend of cereal boxes and laughter, softening the anxiety creeping into her gut. Setting aside her fears, she dedicated time to organizing her thoughts for the meetup. What would she say? How could she encapsulate her journey, her aspirations, without drowning in the sea of self-doubt? She considered her family, her motivations intertwined with their dreams. "My children," she murmured softly, "I need to remain a role model for them." Inspiration sparked once more. Her enthusiasm for this new venture needed to echo through her words. The day dragged in slowness, each hour stretching painfully as she performed her daily routine. Errands were executed with mechanical precision, her mind preoccupied with the evening's prospect. She needed to break the chains of trepidation that threatened to snag her courage. What if she faltered when faced with others' judgment? It was a recurring thought, gnawing relentlessly. In those fleeting moments of solitude while waiting in line or folding clothes, she reminded herself of the commitment she made, both to herself and her aspirations. After school hours, a new dynamic unfolded. Her children, eager and curious, regaled her with stories about their day, their vibrance reinvigorating her spirit. Their untainted enthusiasm reminded Sarah of her own creativity waiting to be unleashed. She engaged them in a playful storytelling exercise, weaving fantastical tales as they sat together, laughter harmonizing with the kitchen's atmosphere. It felt fulfilling. The ancient link between parenthood and creativity rendered palpable. As the afternoon faded into the evening, the pendulum of time swayed in ominous anticipation. The clock ticked steadily, reminding Sarah she was running short on time. She shifted nervously, contemplating what awaited her. It was nearly time to go. The trip to the meeting felt labyrinthine, anxiety twisting inside her with every mile. The anticipation transformed into a tangible dread as she considered the faces she would encounter. Who were they? Were they as accomplished as she feared? Arriving at the community center, Sarah forced herself to hold her head high. The building buzzed with chatter, creating an atmosphere electric with possibility. She stepped through the doors, her stomach churning as she scanned the room filled with groups of chattering writers. A kaleidoscope of talent and creativity surrounded her, yet the weight of her self-consciousness rooted her feet to the spot. Could she really step forward? Would they accept her? What right did she have to share her voice among seasoned writers? Battling the whirlwind of self-criticism, she began to move, each step deliberately measured. As she approached a small group, her heart raced. They noticed her. She could feel their eyes questioning, curious. "Hi, I'm Sarah," she stammered, the words emerging clumsily as she introduced herself. The response she received was warm, a welcome acknowledgement that dulled the piercing edge of her anxiety. Their genuine interest catalyzed something within her, an awakening. Sarah felt her pulse quicken, a hope unfurling in the depths of her heart. Maybe this was not merely a step into the unknown, but the beginning of her recognition, a chance to discover not only the writer in her, but the vibrant woman who had always been lurking beneath the surface. But just as she began to relax, a voice from the corner of the room pulled her focus, a sharp edge cutting through her emerging comfort. "Who does she think she is?" Another mommy blogger trying to play author. The remark sliced through the warmth, pulling Sarah back to the brink of her insecurities. As eyes flicked toward her, tension swelled in the air, beckoning her deeper into self-reflection. Was she simply a wannabe? Could she shake off this contempt, or were those whispers destined to confine her? With resolve ignited by the challenge ahead, Sarah thought fiercely this was her moment to reclaim her narrative. It had only begun, but would there be strength enough to silence the critics within and without? That thought twisted, a feral determination awakening with each pulse of her heartbeat. What awaited her in this creative crucible? And would she find the courage to claim her rightful place among the writers that surrounded her? The atmosphere inside the community center buzzed like a live wire, crackling with unexpressed potential and palpable insecurity. Sarah stood at the fringes, feeling the invisible boundary that separated her from the comforting embrace of camaraderie in the crowd. She inhaled deeply, her resolve slowly morphing into an insistent whisper within her. This was not just about her. It was about confronting the dismissive jeers that echoed in her mind. Who does she think she is? The voice from earlier nodded her, masquerading as a shadow draped over her budding aspirations. Turning slightly away from the group she had approached, she let herself absorb the energetic exchange of ideas and stories swirling around her. The camaraderie. The thrill of shared creativity. There was nothing inherently flawed about being a mother and an aspiring writer. Pioneers like Toni Morrison had forged paths, refusing to let labels box them in. Stepping further into the gathering, she clutched her notebook tightly, its pages filled with thoughts and snippets of her narrative. As she navigated the small clusters of writers, her eyes took in snippets of conversation, discussions of plot structures, characters, and the rawness of personal experiences. Each exchange was a seed planted in her mind, pushing her to question her previous doubts. A woman with curly hair caught her attention. She appeared to be in her 30s, animatedly discussing travel novels. With newfound determination, Sarah approached her. "I'm really interested in writing about my experiences as a mother, but I want to ensure it's meaningful, not just a collection of anecdotes." The words poured out, a flurry of insecurity wrapped in eagerness. The woman turned to her, eyes glimmering with warmth. "That essay, powerful angle. Authenticity resonates more than perfection. Your perspective as a mother is unique, and your voice could inspire others in ways you haven't yet imagined." For the first time since arriving, Sarah felt encouraged. The critiques that loomed in her mind began to fade, replaced by the burgeoning realization that her narrative was valid. As she voiced her experiences, each word lifted some of the weight she carried. Sharing her passion, albeit in a shaky voice, felt liberating. However, it wouldn't be long before self-doubt crept back in like a weed in her blossoming garden. Each laugh exchanged among peers subtly echoed her fears, feeding that small yet persistent voice that whispered she was out of her depth. What did she really know about the literary world? Could she be worthy among these aspiring authors? Biting her lip, she decided she wouldn't let those questions paralyze her. Then, suddenly, she spotted the woman who had spoken earlier, the one whose dismissive voice had cut into her blossoming confidence. The woman stood across the room, now engrossed in conversation with two other members. Sarah recognized the opportunity unfolding before her. Could she engage with her? Confront the unfounded judgment that had rattled her nerves? Moments ticked by, filled with indecision. The thought of standing her ground battled fiercely against the fear of rejection and ridicule. But the internal conflict ignited a fire. What if standing up for herself would catalyze her growth as a writer? Sarah found herself gripping the edge of her notebook as determination surged. As if the universe had heard her pleading thoughts, the other woman's laughter rang through the room again, sharpening Sarah's resolve. It was now or never. She had to step beyond the realm of passive apprehension. Drawing a breath, she turned on her heel and walked forward, her heart racing, each step echoing a declaration of her intent to assert her identity. With her heart pounding in her chest, Sarah approached the group, her voice steady yet filled with an underlying tremor of defiance. I'm not just a mommy blogger. I'm a storyteller with a life rich in experiences worth sharing. The three turned, their expressions shifting from lightheartedness to curiosity. Sarah's words hung in the air like a charged balloon, waiting to either burst or float. Would she shatter the image they had imposed upon her, or was this merely another moment of stumbling into rejection? As she stood before them, the din of the room faded, and the weight of her decision pressed firmly against her spirit. In that moment, Sarah realized she had merely initiated the first act of a much larger narrative, one where she had the power to redefine her role in the writing community. The next chapter of her journey hinged on this confrontation, marking either a steep dive into doubt or an ascent into self-validated purpose. Could she emerge from this exchange unscathed, or were the seeds of her fears too deeply rooted? Only the coming words would reveal whether she could rise to claim her rightful place in the sun or remain shrouded in shadows. The trio exchanged glances, momentarily taken aback by the intensity of Sarah's declaration. The woman with curly hair raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The others, a lean man with glasses and a petite woman with a short bob, leaned closer, the previous levity dissipating like mist. Sarah's heart raced as she braced herself. This was her moment to confront her doubts head-on. The man adjusted his glasses and broke the silence. What do you mean by a life rich in experiences? I'm curious to know what that looks like. His tone wasn't condescending. It was earnest, almost challenging. Sarah felt her pulse quickening, yet the prospect of their interest ignited a flicker of confidence within her. She glanced down at her notebook, the very thing that had hung in limbo for so long. In this moment, it could become her shield. My experiences as a mother has shaped how I see the world, she began, her voice gaining traction with each word. The challenges, the joy, the heartbreak, it all influences how I write about life and relationships. It's not just about parenting. It's a lens through which I view narratives. The man nodded, and a flicker of understanding danced in his eyes. That's a unique perspective, though sometimes it can easily be overlooked, he said, and Sarah caught herself wanting to resonate with that remark. The woman with the bob interjected, I think many people share that experience but don't dare to voice it. The pressure to conform to traditional literary standards can silence important stories. What makes yours different? For a moment, Sarah hesitated. The question was daunting, like a maze without a clear exit. Would she be able to articulate the depth of her truth? Yet, as she opened her mouth to respond, she felt clarity crystallize in her mind. Because I'm writing from a place where many fear to tread. It's honest, it's raw, and it's the reality of motherhood today. it can be chaotic and beautiful all at once. The soft smiles that emerged on their faces encouraged her to plow onward. Sharing those messy, authentic moments is what I believe will resonate. Not every story has a tidy ending, and that's okay. Life isn't a fairy tale. It's a complex narrative filled with nuances. The curly-haired woman leaned forward, positively beaming now. That is powerful. Authenticity draws people in more than any polished prose ever could. Your truth can weave into a greater narrative that voices those unspoken struggles. You might help others feel seen. The acknowledgement felt like a smooth stone thrown into a calm pond. Ripples of affirmation traveled through her, and the shadows of doubt began to fade. Yet, just as exhilaration washed over her, a deeper realization prickled at the edges of her consciousness. She had engaged this group, confronted her fears, and found common ground. But what if this newfound sense of empowerment was merely superficial? Could she truly sustain this narrative of authenticity in her writing journey? The man casually replied, "Next time you're at the group, why don't you bring a piece of your writing? Show us how you weave those experiences into your words." The suggestion hit like a gentle wave, stirring excitement and dread in equal measure. What had been a timid reiteration of her identity transformed into an invitation and opportunity to lay bare her essence on the page. Yet, the looming fear returned, nibbling at the edges of her confidence. Could she expose herself so fully in her writing? Finally, she offered a shaky smile. "I might just take you up on that. But maybe, just maybe, I'll surprise all of us." As she stepped back from the small gathering, Sarah recognized that this exchange was not the end but merely the beginning. Her fingers tightened around the notebook, feeling the kinetic energy of her burgeoning ambition melding with her fears. Could she commit not only to writing but also to embodying her experiences with unwavering honesty? The question loomed large, a defining crossroads laying before her. Title her next work The Journey Within, writing through the chaos, and allow her to discover what hidden gems of creativity lay buried within. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah Johnson embraced her journey as both a writer and a mother with renewed determination. Each morning, she watched the sun rise, reflecting on her commitments. No longer burdened by the fear of judgment, she chose to see every challenge as an opportunity for growth. Her children flourished alongside her, witnessing their mother transform her dreams into reality. At the community writing group, Sarah had quickly gained recognition. She began sharing her pieces, which resonated with many. Her intimate stories of motherhood and perseverance drew the attention of her peers, who urged her to contribute to local publications. With each piece completed, her confidence soared. Words flowed more freely, often carrying the same laughter her children shared at the dinner table. One particularly memorable evening marked a turning point. Sarah stood before her writing cohort, delivering a piece titled, "The Journey Within, Embracing the Chaos." As she read aloud, the room fell silent, engaged in every syllable. Her final words lingered in the air, declaring, "This journey isn't just mine. It belongs to all the mothers navigating their way through the storm. Let us embrace our stories, because they deserve to be told." As the applause thundered in her ears, Sarah realized she had not only conquered her doubts, but also woven her identity as a writer back into her role as a mother. Her children, seated at the back of the room, wore expressions of pride that filled her heart with warmth. In the following weeks, Sarah's pieces were featured in various parenting and lifestyle publications. She turned her passion into purpose, demonstrating that success is measured through authenticity and connection. Local media began to take note of her journey. Interviews and features highlighted her unique approach to storytelling, focusing on the intertwining of motherhood and individuality. Recognition came in various forms: acceptance into a writing festival, invitations to speak, and inquiries for workshops she could lead. As she established herself within the literary community, Sarah found pathways to foster others' voices, especially those who felt unheard. Each step fortified her resolve and marked her progress toward becoming the social worker she had always aspired to be. She began volunteering at local schools, mentoring young parents, providing them with resources to reclaim their narratives. Months later, on a sun-drenched afternoon, Sarah stood on stage at a local literary festival as the keynote speaker. The audience comprised aspiring writers, mothers, and community members eager to listen. As she spoke of resilience, the importance of authenticity, and the power of storytelling, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment wash over her. This moment was more than a career milestone. It represented the culmination of every struggle, every moment of vulnerability that led her here. The applause that followed was a symphony of validation. Sarah had not merely conquered her fears, she had solidified her identity and transformed her life into one of purpose and courage. No longer trapped by societal limitations, she emerged more confident, recognized for her competencies as a writer, and exemplified the balance of ambition with familial obligations. With her children cheering at the front, Sarah beamed with pride. Each heartbeat echoed with a sense of accomplishment, a reminder of the dual roles she navigated. She had demonstrated through her journey that it is possible to pursue passions while nurturing family connections. As she descended from the stage, the reality settled and her dreams had materialized into a tangible reality. Now was the moment for her audience, her supporters, to embrace their narratives. Sarah knew each person held their unique stories waiting to be unleashed. The journey of finding one's voice is both personal and universal. This realization strengthened her resolve to continue advocating for others, ensuring their stories were also honored and celebrated. So here is where we conclude this gripping tale of transformation. Sarah has risen from the shadows of self-doubt to lap up the light of accomplishment. She not only achieved her own dreams, but also ignited a flame within others, sparking a community of storytellers ready to emerge. Now, it's your turn to take a leap of faith. Subscribe immediately to our channel to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now. Your support feeds the algorithm and keeps these narratives alive. Comment your thoughts and theories about Sarah's incredible journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to uplift others through the strength of storytelling.